the US, with now just 24 days left in the race for the White House. The election is won or lost in the swing states, and President Obama has been to one of those today, namely Ohio. Addressing a rally of Democrat supporters, he used his speech to question Donald Trump's fitness to succeed him, saying Mr. Trump lacked the qualifications to be president.
Donald Trump's closing argument is, what do you have to lose? The answer is everything. All the progress we've made right now is on the ballot. Civility is on the ballot. Tolerance is on the ballot. Courtesy is on the ballot. Honesty is on the ballot. Equality is on the ballot. Kindness is on the ballot. All the progress we made the last 8 years is on the ballot. Democracy itself is on the ballot right now. So if you want to send a message, make it loud.
President Obama speaking today, and as the race enters its final stages, both campaigns have been spending the day targeting key contested states. Mrs. Clinton's campaign in Ohio and Mr. Trump's campaign was in North Carolina. Well, Anthony Zurcher is in Washington for us. Hi there, Anthony. Good to see you. We heard there from President Obama an energized campaign speech for Mrs. Clinton. Are we expected to see him and also, crucially, his wife, Michelle Obama, in the next 3 weeks?
Absolutely. I think that the two of them are one of Hillary Clinton's greatest assets right now. Barack Obama is extremely popular, particularly for a president who's been in office for 8 terms. Generally, they tend to be a little lower in the favorability ratings because we've been around so long. But Obama's in the high 50s. His wife is even higher up, and they're making the case for Obama's legacy. If you saw that speech, he was trying to rally the base, get them to turn out. That's the key. The minority voters, young voters still really love Barack Obama, and his goal over the next 3 weeks, I think, is going to be to get them to show up at the polls.
Looking at the Republican side, Donald Trump is due to speak shortly. He's promised new evidence that will discredit claims against him. Mike Pence has done the same. Are we likely to see another 3 weeks of purely personal attack and counterattack going forward?
And that definitely is the way it's looking right now. I mean, ever since that tape came out last Friday that had Donald Trump making off-color comments about how he used to sexually harass women, he said during the debate on Sunday night that those were just words. He opened himself up to this litany, this parade of women coming forward saying that, yes, he made sexual advances towards us that were unwelcome. I think we're not done seeing those. We just got another one today in the Washington Post. His campaign's on his back heels, and the way he's decided to respond to this is to go on to the attack, and it looks like he's going to stick to that for another 3 weeks.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Anthony. Anthony Zurcher there in Washington for us. And don't forget, later in the program, we're reporting from that key state of Ohio. No Republican ever has made it to the White House and lost that state in the election. So stay with us for a special report later in the program. Now, she campaigned vigorously for her husband in Nigeria's election 2 years ago, but Aisha Buhari has warned she might not back him again unless he shakes up his government. Well, President Muhammadu Buhari promised to tackle corruption when he came to power, but according to his wife, he doesn't know most of his top officials. Speaking to the BBC, Aisha Buhari said it was time her husband listened to her supporters. Well, since then, President Buhari has shot back at his wife's comments, telling her, in his opinion, where she belongs.
I don't know which party my wife belongs to, but she belongs to my kitchen and my living room and the other room. I hope my wife will remember that I was in the field for 12 years. I tried 3 times. The fourth time, I managed to succeed, and I ended up the first 3 times, ending up in Nigerian Supreme Court. So I claim superior knowledge over her and the rest of the opposition, because in the end I have succeeded.
Well, Naziru Mikailu is our bureau chief in Abuja. He actually did the original interview with Mrs. Buhari for the BBC, and I'm happy to say he joins me now. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. How is this all playing out in Nigeria? It seems quite shocking to us here. And what are the views on what Mr. Buhari had to say, in retaliation to what his wife said?
Yeah, many people, especially women group and other activists, have condemned President Muhammadu Buhari's reaction. Some people on social media are comparing him with US Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, while others are saying, well, President Muhammadu Buhari may be a good leader, but definitely a bad husband, according to them. And yeah, while others are saying, where was he when she was campaigning for him? Was she doing that in the kitchen or in the other room? So these are the kind of comment people have been making, while others are saying, well, President Muhammadu Buhari was joking, and in the last few minutes, the president's spokesman has issued a statement saying the president was actually joking when he said his wife belongs to the kitchen. He wasn't referring to her or trying to lower her status at all.
Naziru, I wonder, why has Mrs. Buhari chosen to make these comments so publicly now?
Well, I think this takes us back to, I think, months or over a year, because since the government was formed, because President Muhammadu Buhari came into power following the merger of the main opposition parties. And I think that left a vacuum within the government, with many people feeling that they have not been taken on board, and the president wife felt it is time to come out and speak, so that hoping that her intervention will force the president to make some changes, and so that the party will remain in unity and move forward. But it appears like the president is not willing to do that.
Naziru, thank you very much for joining us. That's Naziru Mikhailou joining us live from Abuja. Let's move on. One of the kidnapped Chibok schoolgirls has been speaking to the BBC about Thursday's release of her 21 classmates. Rebecca Ishaku was among the 270 students abducted by Boko Haram militants back in April of 2014. But she managed to escape in the hours following the mass kidnapping when she jumped off a truck. Our correspondent Martin Patience began by asking her reaction to her schoolmates' release.
So happy, very, very happy that that day is the day of joy, is the day of happiness. Happiness for me to get my friends back.
You must have thought over the past 2 years that they would never come back.
Yes, definitely. My thinking is this, that they will never come back. Maybe they were killed by now. But every day I had some dream about them, that they came back.
And of the girls released, did you recognize some of their names? Did you recognize some of them from TV?
Yes. I recognize Agnes Kapani.
She was a close friend?
Yes.
What would be the first thing you would tell them when you get to see them?
When I get to see them, I wanted to tell them that what has happened, it has already happened. They have to forget all what has happened. It has already passed. They have to forget everything, so that they will think about their future. They will not continue in that situation that they be. We have never forgot the rest, because it is only 21 that are back. So we have to keep demanding for the rest to be back very soon.
The words of one of the Chibok schoolgirls taken by Boko Haram. Now, Thailand has begun its year of official mourning following the death of King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who passed away on Thursday. Since then, the Crown Prince has made a surprising request, asking for a delay in the process so he and the people of Thailand have time to grieve for his father. Well, Thailand's military government has now confirmed that the 96-year-old Prayem Tinasulanont, who's a chairman of the Privy Council, will act as regent. Well, from Thailand, here's Jonathan Head.
The last journey of a king whose long reign defined the modern character of his country. His body was carried in slow procession from the hospital where he died to the Grand Palace, where a sea of mourners dressed in black gathered for a final glimpse of him. The crowd stretched out, unbroken, across Bangkok's old royal quarter as far as you could see.
It's very hard to convey to you the extraordinary atmosphere here among the crowds outside the Grand Palace, waiting in fearful heat to say a last goodbye to the man they simply called Father. It's a powerful shared sense of national grief felt across the country among people from all walks of life and all shades of opinion.
As the hearse approached the palace gate, a hush spread across the crowd. Most couldn't see clearly, but they sensed his arrival and started sobbing quietly, pressing their palms together in final salutes. They saw in this king a kind of talisman for their country, a man who represented tradition and modernity, a kindly ruler. And so at the end, they struggled through their grief to sing the anthem composed specially for the king and sung at so many everyday occasions. This last heartfelt rendition, a way to say goodbye. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Bangkok.
Now let's take a look at some of the day's other news. And Israel has suspended cooperation with the United Nations Cultural Agency for adopting a resolution which Israelis say denies their connection to holy sites in the old city of Jerusalem. The resolution, which was passed by UNESCO, uses only the Muslim name for the holy site, which is known to Jews as the Temple Mount. Americans travelling to Cuba will be allowed to bring home more of the island's coveted cigars and rum under new measures announced by the US government on Friday to further ease trade and travel between the two countries. The news will be welcomed by the Cuban government, which wants to end the decades-old long embargo. The US Secretary of State John Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will be holding fresh talks on Syria in Switzerland on Saturday. In Syria, President Assad has been speaking to a Russian newspaper. He remains unapologetic over his forces' actions in Aleppo despite heavy civilian casualties. This is what he had to say about his army's attempts to recapture Aleppo.
From the strategic point of view, military point of view, you don't cut. It's going to be the springboard as big city to move to another areas, to liberate another areas from the terrorists. But this is the importance of Aleppo. You have to keep cleaning this area and to push the terrorists to Turkey to go back to where they come from or to kill them. There's no other options. So, but Aleppo is going to be very important springboard to do this move.
Earlier this month, the Colombian peace process was dealt a severe blow. Despite years of peace negotiations in Cuba, the Colombian people rejected the final deal in a referendum, with the No campaign arguing that the deal would mean that FARC leaders would avoid prison sentences. Both sides are now trying to find a resolution to the crisis, but time is running out. A ceasefire is due to expire at the end of this month. Well, in Havana, Will Grant spoke to the FARC's top negotiator.
The Colombian peace process is in crisis. After years of talks in Havana, the signing of a final agreement in Cartagena last month was heralded as a moment of hope. But then came the cold, hard reality. A few days later, in a referendum, the Colombian people narrowly rejected the peace deal on the table, many saying it was too lenient on the FARC leadership. Specifically on guerrilla leaders like Ivan Marquez, number 2 in the organisation and their lead negotiator in Cuba. He acknowledges the No campaign's victory, but only just.
It was a technical draw between the No and the Yes. The No didn't obtain an absolute majority, but they have an Achilles heel. The No campaign was constructed on a base of lies.
Many of those who voted no say that it wasn't a vote against peace, just a vote against this deal. Yes to peace, but not like this, was their slogan. But the FARC leadership disagree with that completely.
Ellos quieren la paz, pues ahí tenemos un instrumento ya en nuestras manos que se llama el acuerdo final. They want peace? Well, we already have the instrument in our hands called the final agreement. Let's use it. And yes, we can add some of their proposals to enrich, so we have a strong final agreement which counts on the support of the entire nation, which is what we need.
However, with thousands of guerrillas now waiting for the green light to disarm, they are neither at war nor fully at peace. That state of limbo can't go on indefinitely.
Hay que salir rápido de esa situación de incertidumbre, es cierto. Por eso,
We need to come out of this situation of uncertainty quickly, it's true. That's why we reaffirm that the delay being caused by some parts of the No camp is intended to bring down the peace process, but it won't succeed.
Digamos, dar por terminado el proceso de paz.
Ivan Marquez admitted to being a little surprised about the referendum result, but insisted that the FARC weren't frustrated by the decision. He did say, though, that time is now their greatest enemy. There's a sense that this crisis needs to be resolved soon before the peace process loses its impetus. Will Grant, BBC News, Havana.
Unmanned drone aircraft are beginning to deliver medical supplies to remote hospitals in Rwanda. The idea is to save time in inaccessible regions where travelling by road is very difficult. Initially, doctors will be able to order blood products by sending a text message. In the future, it's hoped that drones will be able to deliver vaccines and other medicines. Dan Simmons has this report.
Launching Zip 2-2 in 3, 2, 1.
This could be the drone that catapults Rwanda and possibly the world into a faster way to deliver goods. US startup Zipline has developed a fixed-wing drone that can automatically fly to its destination using satellite navigation, up to 75 kilometers away.
Whoa! And this is the package that it delivers. It comes down on what wasn't a brilliantly operational parachute, I guess, on this time. It looks like it's come apart. But this is biodegradable. It's a one-time use, so they don't need to worry about the environmental impact of using this. Inside is the life-saving package. This is the blood that will be used by surgeons, possibly to save somebody's life. And as you can see, it's extremely well wrapped up.
Rwanda's countryside may be beautiful, but the land of 1,000 hills, as it's known, takes time to traverse. Patients brought to Rwanda's many district hospitals can face waits of hours, sometimes a day, for blood or plasma to be delivered by bike. The new service, paid for by delivery by Rwanda's Department of Health, starts with a text and finishes 20 minutes later with a drop, avoiding the need for the drone to land.
The government pays us for each and every flight that we do. But the really cool thing is that these flights are actually about equal or a little less expensive than the way they were currently doing these deliveries, using motorcycles or trucks.
Many African nations are looking at what's happening here to see if this drone can help their rural communities. The fact that its cargo is so precious and potentially life-saving, and that President Kagame has given this project his own personal seal of approval, means that the team here will probably learn quite quickly. They'll be allowed to make a few more mistakes than other similar schemes around the world. If this can be proven to be safe and reliable, this could be the future of drone delivery, not just in Rwanda, but around the world. Dan Simmons, BBC News, Muhanga.
Now here's a picture of a truly extraordinary escape. The footage shows the moment when a shark got into what was thought to be a shark-proof cage with the diver still inside. And just so you know, the diver escaped completely unharmed. Christian Fraser picks up the story.
An encounter with a great white shark lured to the viewing cages with a lump of tuna. Having taken the bait, it thrashes its way into the cage. There's a professional diver inside.
Just thought it would be able to turn and swim off. You couldn't really see immediately the shark in there because it was like just this boiling water.
In the cage. Until the shark fights its way through the top, blood seeping from its gills. But this is not the blood of the diver who's still missing.
Then it just got quiet. That was another big scary moment. Like Ming, the diver, didn't just immediately pop up. You know, it took a while, like 10 or 12 seconds, which seems like a long time.
Shaken, but unhurt. Ming is an experienced dive master, but never before can his skills have been tested like this. When the cage gave way, he dropped beneath it. 2 other sharks were below him. A lucky escape. The heart is pumping. These shark cages are professionally engineered to prevent sharks breaking through. It was, say the boat handlers, a freak accident. A shark in a tight corner with enough power to break the rail at just the wrong moment. Christian Fraser, BBC News.
Some amazing pictures there. Right, let's return to our top story. The US presidential election, and Ohio has special significance to any campaign. That's because no Republican candidate has ever won the presidency without winning the state. So it's a must-win for Donald Trump, who's seen his national poll ratings slide alarmingly in recent days. Fortunately, for him at least, the loss of manufacturing of jobs in Ohio has led to some Democrats to rethink their political loyalties. Well, the BBC's Katty Kay visited Lorain in the north of the state and has this report.
This is the turnstile that never turns, the chimneys that never pump steam, the factory that produces nothing. In its heyday, this steel mill employed thousands of people. They're gone. The plant is shut. No one works here anymore. This is the story of Lorain, Ohio, a town globalization left behind.
It's been a hard road for a lot of people in this community. When you walked out of high school, as soon as you got your diploma, the next day you can go get a job and start working at Ford, U.S. Steel, Through Shovel, shipyards. You don't have that anymore.
Down the road from Republic Steel is another plant run by U.S. Steel. It's still open, just. But it only has jobs for 200 people. Mark Williams knows he's lucky to be one of them. Mark is a lifelong Democrat who this year switched parties in order to vote for Donald Trump.
I'm upset. I'm discouraged with the government. There's people's lives at stake. There's people losing their houses.
Mark doesn't like what Trump says about women and immigrants, but a few months ago he met the candidate right here at Goody's Diner, and he was impressed.
Voting for my job. I asked a lot of questions. Didn't particularly care for a lot of the answers that he gave me, being a union steelworker. But they were honest.
You hear a lot about global trade deals in Lorain. None of it good. Those are the deals, they say, that killed this town, that made this one of the more depressing places in America. On the main drag, the Clinton campaign makes a splash, but they know Trump has tapped into something here.
I was born here, but I've lived here my whole life.
Dan Ramos's family's been here for 4 generations. Lorain is Union country, and it should be Hillary country.
I think people are upset. People have seen that the status quo has not gone well for us, that we need to do more. We need to make sure that we build an economy that rises all boats, as it were. I think that's what Secretary Clinton is pushing for.
Closed factories litter northern Ohio, ghostly cathedrals to another time, a time before the double blow of free trade and automation. When factories that used to employ hundreds of workers now look like this, it's not surprising that people are angry. And it's more human to blame other countries or immigrants than it is to blame computer chips or robots. But this wrecked plant is as much the story of technology as of trade. Susan Helper is a professor of economics who spent a few years working in the Obama administration.
We've had a particular kind of globalization, and this protects large multinationals that worry about things like intellectual property, whereas they don't protect labor rights or environmental rights. And so what you have is a globalization that's really rewards, in many cases, competition based on who can mistreat their workers and the environment more.
Back in Lorain, Tom Kelling is an optimist. Tom lost his job at US Steel a year ago. He's just been called back. Do you think any of the candidates, from what you've heard, can help?
I believe both of them can. I believe it's more of big money. Any politician could help us. It's just who's going to be the one that's going to step up and say, hey, we need this money, instead of going here out of the country, bring it here.
The candidates can promise the moon, but these steel mills will never provide jobs and livelihoods the way they used to. A new industry will have to revive Lorain. That's a challenge for whoever is the next president. Katty Kay, BBC News, Northern Ohio.
Well, that's all from the programme. Thanks for joining me. Stick around next for the weather. But for now, from me and the rest of the team, it's a very goodbye. Goodbye for now.